welcome to Elements of Ayurveda, Empowering Wisdom of Life. I'm your host, Colette, and in this podcast, I hope to empower you to take charge of your own health by sharing the holistic teachings of Ayurveda, the ancient healing tradition from India. We will also discuss topics like health and wellness, nutrition, yoga, fitness, meditation, breath work, and much more, as well as interviewing lots of inspiring people along the way. My humble wish is to help you to connect to your true nature, to Mother Nature, and to each other. If you like the content, be sure to subscribe to the show, and the new episodes will automatically download for you to enjoy. If you're new to Ayurveda, I recommend you listen to the first couple of episodes where I do an introduction to Ayurveda and the mind-body types. I've also set up a Facebook group for us to connect and to support each other, and I'd love for you to join me over at Elements of Ayurveda podcast group. And now, here's the show. Hello, and welcome to Elements of Ayurveda. I am very happy to introduce you to an Ayurvedic doctor by the name of Pratibha Shah, who is a leading Ayurveda expert in the United States. Her pioneering initiatives in the field of Ayurveda have brought her to the attention of the White House, the Department of Health and Human Resources, as well as the Consulate General of India in New York. For her work, she was nominated in the top 20 Women of the Year for 2014, and she is the Senior Faculty and Ayurveda Domain Expert for Kerala Ayurveda Academy and CEO of My Ayurveda LLC. She is also founder, president of two nonprofits, Council for Ayurveda Research and Holistic Health Alliance. Dr. Shah currently consults out of her home office in Danvers and at Well Life Medical, a state-of-the-art integrative medicine clinic near Boston, Massachusetts in the U.S. Before moving to the U.S., Dr. Shah was a chief medical officer with Ayush Ministry in India. Dr. Shah, welcome to the show. I'm very excited to have you here today.
Hi, Colette. I'm excited to be on your show. I'm a little under the weather, but I think my voice is going to be fine enough for today's session. So let's go for it.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time, and especially since you're not feeling well. And I want to tell the audience how I came in touch with you. I actually reached out to you because I saw your name appear in an Ayurveda and Women's Health Conference, and that was back in 2018. And what caught my attention is you spoke at the conference about a No Pause Menopause, which is a topic that I haven't discussed yet on the podcast, and I really want to get some information out there for people because I think people really need to hear the Ayurvedic approach. And you talked about the importance of preparing for a transition that is natural and going through menopause with grace and dignity, and of course in the most optimal state of being. So we're going to chat in detail about that today, but let's start with breaking down what is menopause. I'd love for you to start just explaining what menopause is, please.
Sure, Colette. I think that's a good start to this topic. First, understand what menopause is, and then let's talk about how can we have a very smooth transition through this natural phase that any woman is likely to encounter.
Great.
Because Ayurveda equips us with tools and solutions to have the smoothest of transitions in all our natural phases in life. And with women, as you understand, that we have several milestone phases that we go through, starting with menarche, which is the onset of menstruation. And then if a woman chooses to conceive, then she can go through conception, pregnancy, postpartum. And throughout the childbearing age, depending on a woman's choices, her circumstances, she may conceive and deliver several times in her reproductive life cycle. And then there is this age-related transition, which we call menopause. And today I'm really excited to share about my perspective on menopause, because there is a word pause in there. But I, as someone who has gone through these milestones in my life myself, and I'm at the menopause stage myself, I have a perspective that comes from someone who is in the situation herself. And I wanted to make sure that the word pause need not be taken too seriously. It's really not meant as a pause in our life.
Right.
It could be a time for reflection, for enrichment, for peace, for wisdom, but it does not have to be seen as the kind of point in one's life where one thinks of it as, okay, after this, there's going to be decline.
Right.
So I wanted to make sure that I bring that perspective into today's talk. But let's start at the very beginning in understanding what exactly is menopause and what are the players involved in this phenomenon. So when a girl child is in conception, she's in the fetus state, at 20 weeks of gestation approximately, there are 6 to 7 million follicles in her ovary. As you understand that the female reproductive gamete or cell is called egg, right? That comes from the ovaries. And at gestation, so when the female child is in conception in the mom's womb, there are 6 to 7 million follicles in her ovaries, provided they are healthy, of course. At birth, these follicles reduce to 1.5 to 2 million. At menarche, which could be around 10 to 12 years of age typically, they are reduced further to 300,000 to 400,000. So this follicular atresia or reduction in follicles continues throughout life. And when follicles are sufficiently depleted, like less than 1,000, so it's a continuously declining graph, if you're able to visualize that. They're continuously atrophying and dying out. And when the count reaches below 1,000, menopause occurs. Right? That's, I think, easy to understand. Kind of gives a visual to how, even as we are actually reaching puberty and reaching our peak youth, our follicles are actually continuously reducing even at that point. Right? So this is a continuously downward graph, and it is programmed to go this way. So that is helpful to understand, that this is something that is continuously happening, even as we are as a woman is going through the different phases of her early life and then midlife and then approaching menopause. So this is what is happening. So a woman would typically go through puberty, she would go through peak reproduction, she would go through perimenopause and then menopause. Make sense?
Yes.
So this now breaks it down, it gives a visual picture to the whole thing.
Great.
Now, what is happening is that in a woman's body, there is this hormone called estrogen, which is responsible for a lot of, if you can just simplify it or, just break it down to very simple understanding of what does estrogen do in a female's body. It basically helps the woman look feminine, have a good libido, have good reproductive health. And this is what is more known for estrogen. But there are other physiological benefits or health benefits, overall systemic benefits that a woman gets from healthy levels of estrogen in the body. Before I get to, other healthful benefits of estrogen, let's talk about what types of estrogen are there in the body very briefly.
Yes, that would be great.
Right. So there are just 3 different types of estrogens. Estradiol, which is the most common type in women of childbearing age. Then there is estriol, the main estrogen during pregnancy. And the third one is estrone, the only estrogen your body makes after menopause. That's when menstruation stops. So estradiol, estriol, and estrone. So all 3 are there, but at different phases, different estrogens take precedence, or they become more dominant in the body. So in menopause, estrone is the one that is left as the dominant estrogen. Estriol and estradiol fall in their levels in the body. Now, coming back to the benefits of estrogen in the body, it helps with the sexual secondary characteristics such as breast development, widening of hips, female fat distribution, maturation and maintenance of vagina, uterus, and ovarian follicles. Now, the interesting thing is it also helps with the regulation of lipids in the body. So it increases the HDL, which is the good cholesterol, and it decreases the LDL. So it's not surprising that in menopause, women are more susceptible to heart disease.
Yeah.
I think that anybody who is a little educated about women's health knows that at menopause and after menopause, their risk for heart disease increases. And estrogen also helps with improved collagen content in the skin. It helps with the skin thickness. It helps with improved blood supply to the skin. So it is not surprising that in menopause, women start experiencing more wrinkles. The aging factors increase in the body.
Right.
And it becomes more visible to the eye at menopause. Estrogen is also responsible for bone maturation and for maintenance of bone mineral density throughout one's life.
Yes.
It reduces bone resorption, which is like the daily breaking down of the bone. So it regulates that, and it increases the bone formation. So again, what happens is that at menopause, women can experience increased bone loss, which can lead to osteopenia and osteoporosis.
Yes.
And then it is also anti-inflammatory. It keeps the immunity strong. It impacts the fluid balance and lubrication, libido, cognition, moods, etc. So there's a long list of positive health benefits from healthy estrogen levels. Now, I always say this, we can laugh about it, but, sometimes I do wonder if God was a man, because the women have been endowed with all the difficulties and challenges. And especially at menopause, it's like your factory is closing now, so you don't have to look pretty anymore. So let's make you a bag of wrinkles and dry tissues and sagging breasts, etc., right? So, it's very important to, of course, have a positive mindset towards it, but also it is a natural phenomenon, but also we can make it smoother by preventing the sudden dip in estrogen. So I will talk about it when we come to the solutions part.
Great.
But I'll just quickly talk about perimenopause, because that's a word that a lot of women start hearing when they start approaching menopause. So there's a difference between premenopause and perimenopause. So premenopause is leading up to menopause, but still having a normal cycle, no major symptoms. Perimenopause is when you are still approaching menopause also, but you start being symptomatic. So you can have irregular cycles, and you can have increased menopausal symptoms, and this can last from 2 to 8 years, and average about 5 years. Perimenopause can be experienced by any women. And then menopause itself can be defined as a lack of menstruation for 12 consecutive months. The mean age is 51, but you can have a perfectly normal, natural menopause earlier, depending on your family tendencies, what kind of body type you are, etc. But the mean age is around 51.
Okay.
Now, you can have a premature menopause because of some certain diseases, which, have in late 30s, mid 40s, which is definitely earlier than an average menopause. So that would be called a premature menopause. There could be a surgical menopause if your uterus and ovaries have been removed for any reason.
Yes.
And of course, the third one is the natural menopause. Yeah, and some of the perimenopausal symptoms, are, if anybody any of your listeners are in perimenopause, I think they will be able to identify very well, is sleep disturbance. Even if you have been a good sleeper, there are sleep disturbances, which is not surprising from Ayurveda point of view, because 50 onwards, or as you approach 50, your vata starts increasing.
Yeah.
Air, ether principles start increasing, which is opposite to kapha, which is needed for a good sleep. Nidra kapha tamo bhava. Sleep is a function of kapha and tama guna, the mental quality, right? Tama is darkness, tamas. So when the vata starts increasing, automatically kapha depletes and sleep disturbances start becoming frequent. Waking up in the middle of the night or not having a good quality continuous sleep could become common, especially in vata body type people, because they're already vata baseline, and then over and above that they're in the vata phase of their life. Right. There could be mood disturbances, and again this could go the kapha way, where there could be more depression like symptoms, or this could go the pitta way, where there is more anger and irritability, reactivity, more emotional than usual, etc. There could be physical symptoms of fatigue, palpitations, headaches, increased migraines, breast pain, heavier or scanty menstruation. It could swing either ways. It could become heavier or scantier, and irregular cycles. So all of that. And then in menopause itself, a woman can experience hot flashes, night sweats, vaginal dryness and thinning, sexual intercourse becomes difficult. There could be wrinkles, acne, brown spots, dryness, easy bruising, fatigue. Changes in memory can occur. And there can be hair loss, and there can be male pattern hair growth. I mean, we all have seen women in their late 50s, 60s who have a little bit of a mustache and a beard. And, that is part of the estrogen going down and the male hormones taking dominance. There could be osteoporosis, urinary tract infections can increase, etc.
Yeah, so and I know you're going to cover this, but just in general, when people hear this list of symptoms, they might go, oh my goodness. So I just want to give them a little bit of hope here that am I correct in saying that these are in fact just signs of imbalance, and that you don't necessarily have to experience all these symptoms, or at least you don't have to experience them with such severity?
Right. We can say it is sign of an imbalance in some way, to some degree. And to some degree, it is a natural transition. Any natural phenomenon can express in varying degrees of severity.
Right.
Let's put it that way.
Right.
If you have an imbalance, then the level of severity is going to be higher.
Yes.
Whereas if you are in balance, then you may have a more smooth sailing, considering that this is bound to happen.
Exactly.
Can we reduce the impact on your quality of life? And can we prolong the degeneration and the decline that sets in this natural phase.
Exactly. This. I'm sorry to interject there, but I just wanted to give people some hope there after that list of symptoms that if your doshas are in balance, that you don't necessarily have to experience these so severe. You may get mild symptoms, and of course it's a natural transition, as you say, but it doesn't have to be as impactful, which is what you're sharing with us today. So please go on. Thank you.
Right. No, that's a very timely interjection, because before our listeners switch off and
I know,
say,
oh my gosh.
To this one. No. There is hope. There is all good stuff coming now.
Yes.
But just to wrap up,
please,
a little bit of understanding of menopause as per doshas, as per Ayurvedic perspective.
Yes.
So like with everything else, we like to understand what inclinations or susceptibilities or expressions different types of body types will show. And accordingly, our approach for solutions will have to vary so as to customize to the baseline as well as the imbalance that is being seen. For example, a Vata dominant or a Vata imbalanced person may experience more dry symptoms, if you can imagine, because suddenly the degree of dryness increases with the estrogen falling, because there is already dryness coming your way. And if your baseline itself is dry, then the degree of dryness is higher.
Right. And then we're going to the Vata stage of life as well.
Exactly. So the dry skin, the dry vagina can be seen in Vata body types or Vata imbalanced people. Also, it's easy to understand that this body type or this imbalance will also exhibit signs of anxiety, worry, fear, etc. a little more than the other body types, because that's their basic tendency. Reduced libido, mood swings, osteopenia and osteoporosis, because that is what Vata body types tend to experience more, degenerative trends, right?
Yes.
The tendency for degeneration is faster or stronger in Vata body types. So this will be the profile of a Vata menopausal woman.
I'm so glad, Dr. Shah, that you're breaking it down into these dosha-specific tendencies. And so that was the Vata constitution. And now I'd love to hear about what are the menopausal tendencies for a person with a high Pitta constitution or a Pitta imbalance.
Hot flashes, night sweats, anger. A lot of women in menopause become very reactive, very moody, very emotional, so they can experience irrational anger and irritability at normal life situations. Yeah. They can just burst out and then they can regret it, they can start crying. So it kind of is tough, because they themselves can be perplexed about it.
Yeah.
And they can feel a little out of control. And of course, the people, the loved ones around also experience the same surprise and lack of understanding and who is this person, So it kind of makes the situation that much difficult, because it's not just the physiological, but also the emotional aspect that becomes very difficult to navigate, because there's lack of understanding on the woman's part. And of course, the family is completely at a lack of understanding what is happening to this gentle lady, why is she behaving like this? So it's really, I'll come to that, that anticipating and acknowledging and education about it can be really empowering, because now you know. So absolutely. I'll come to that. So, but to complete this list, cardiovascular disease can also be a little more higher in the Pitta baseline. And then in the Kapha, we notice more weight gain tendency, more fluid retention, and mentally we can see more depression rather than more hyperactivity. Okay. There can be imbalance in the lipid profile, high cholesterol, triglycerides, and slower metabolism. So kapha can go from slow to slower. And these are the, kind of physiological and psychological traits that you will witness in kapha baseline menopause. So now let's come to really what is happening when menopause occurs. How is a woman being impacted? Okay,
great.
So
wonderful information.
Right. And, I want to, at this point, really share something that I have been able to observe in my 30 years of practice. And just as a woman, as a mother, as a human being, that in many phases of our lives, we are not properly educated about it. We are not trained about it. Even if it is, whether it's menstruation or whether it's motherhood.
Yes.
Which leads to very difficult coping of those situations, because women can then be completely exhausted due to not anticipating what is coming their way. Motherhood is generally portrayed as a very happy upcoming period in one's life, and that's great. It should be celebrated, rightfully so. But what is a little bit lacking is the preparation for sleepless nights and for the kind of demands that will be there on a woman whose body has just undergone trauma.
Absolutely.
Physically and physiologically. And then over and above that, there is an increased demand on the system postpartum in every which way, whether it's physical attention or psychological attention or just the fact of feeding this newborn and being available 24/7. So what I'm trying to convey is that I think we should have, as women, we should come up in terms of providing some kind of education to prospective mothers, women who are getting into the menopause period. There should be, this is a business opportunity, this is a service opportunity, this is an empowering opportunity, whatever way you want to look at it. But there is a huge gap in here.
Yeah, I agree.
And we can really plug it beautifully. I try to do it in my practice, but one person alone, of course, you understand, cannot really fulfill what is needed here. But coming back to menopause, I think one of the biggest things that happens in menopause, aside of all the physiological things that we talked about, is the element of surprise.
Yes.
It hits you hard. And that's exactly why you need to be educated before. I think from 40 age onwards, 40 to 60, we should have menopause prep lessons,
Yes,
so
great
there is
idea.
this element of surprise which really makes this natural transition that much more harder. It's like, I would like to give an example. So for example, if one is planning to go trekking or hiking, one has a checklist always, right? Okay, let's check on the temperature, let's check on what is the air quality, what is available there. So there is always preparation, whatever we do in our lives, whether it's a hike, trek, boating, whatever.
Yeah.
But we don't prep for these various phases in a woman's life, which are plenty. A man doesn't go through that many transitions, which a woman can potentially go.
Yes.
If
absolutely.
she chooses to conceive, etc. But there are other transitions such as menarche and menopause, which are invariable in any woman's life. And we need not be caught by surprise. That is the important thing. Because when you're caught by surprise, it's like going hiking and then realizing, oh, I did not get my windbreaker.
Right.
Or my jacket is missing, or I did not bring food. And then having that much degree of difficulty, right? But if you're prepared, think about a hiker or a trekker that is prepared with a backpack, with water, with nuts and raisins or whatever it is they need, and they have warm clothing, then that experience is of a different level. So I think first thing I want to talk about is the surprise, and we need to work on taking it away. We as educators, we as women, whatever field we are in, we should try and help empower women who are coming onto this phase.
Absolutely.
Second element is a second point that I wanted to make is an element of sadness, because there is suddenly lack of self-confidence, because everything that used to make you look beautiful is suddenly fading away, dropping in your body, and you don't understand what is happening. Why am I suddenly looking all wrinkled? Why am I dry? So there's a lot of shock and sadness that comes right from that itself. And they go hand in hand, the surprise and the sadness. And then there is this uncertainty and instability that suddenly creeps in, because how do I navigate this? You suddenly are unable to understand yourself. How can you help anybody else understand yourself if you yourself cannot? So there is that uncertainty that creeps in because of all this, and confusion that creeps in. What is happening to me?
Yes.
And then that leads to lack of self-esteem and mixed feelings about it. In short, everything seems to be falling apart.
Right.
So if one is not prepared, one can go through all of these.
Yeah, right? It's an emotional roller coaster.
Yes, and physiological. Like it's like somebody is punching you in every which way all the time.
Yeah.
Before we go into solutions, I just want to talk about a few philosophical things. Okay,
please.
So, for example, one of the things that I like to always share with my fellow women, is that life is not a constant. It is dynamic and ever changing. Any aspect of our life, if you see. So that is something to keep at the back of the mind, because if you're going about life expecting no change, that itself can be setting up for shock and surprise.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I think this is something we should revise in our mind as much as possible, that life is not a constant. It is going to change. Change is the norm. It's an important thing to remind ourselves very frequently, because this helps us to reduce that shock experience.
Yes.
So that is one. Now, just like the universe around us is changing with seasons, with different parts of the world responding differently in different times of the year, etc. So that is also happening within us. We are a microcosm of the universe. And the more aligned we are for any change, we even change the tires of our cars with every season. So that is called aligning with with what is coming up. So alignment is health and misalignment is disease. Just remember that very fundamental truth, that as long as you continue to align with what is happening proactively, you will have a frictionless journey, if it makes sense.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Smooth journey. But if you are not aligning, then you are experiencing more resistance, more friction, more degree of difficulty, and that is basically disease, right?
Yes.
Flow is health, blockage is disease, right?
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
as long as you keep everything flowing, whether it's not just the channels in your body, whatever it is, whether it's blood or neurological impulses or your gut, everything needs to be moving smoothly. And if anything gets blocked, any of these, whether it's your glands, your hormones, anything blockage is disease, right? That's another thing. Very fundamental truth.
Yeah.
So that is one. And you were going to say something?
Yeah, well, actually, I would like to add one in there too that keeps coming to my mind as you're talking is, we could go even deeper, even more philosophical with this, and aligning with your true self, I think. If in the West, we tend to have a big emphasis on outward appearance. So if we start seeing these wrinkles appear and these graying hair and so on, and we identify more with our outward appearance than with our true nature within, as we talk about in Ayurveda, that I think that has to be a journey throughout our lives as well, which is something we talk about in Ayurveda all the time, and yoga is your journey to your true self, so that you can go through these transitions more smoothly because you're less attached to this outward appearance. That's
fabulous point that you have made at the right time. Because the second line of the definition of health according to Ayurveda is prasanna atmendriya manaha swastha mitya vidiyate, right? So the prasanna, the joy of being in your true self is unbelievable, So we live in an era where we are bombarded by different imaging, body imaging, a type of lifestyle that one needs to live to be socially acceptable, etc.
Yes.
I think it's important to continue to unlearn things on a daily basis because your psyche is being conditioned in a certain way, and it takes you away from being ensconced in your true self.
Yes.
That's the swastha. Swastha is healthy, right?
Yes.
When you're established in your self, not somebody else's self.
Exactly.
In fact, I want to say it at this time because it just came to my mind that I have just recently launched my own product line, organic and USDA organic certified and very pure and potent, etc. And I'm calling it Swastha.
Beautiful. And this is organic. And this is skincare line?
It's herbs, formulations, custom blends.
Wonderful.
We just recently launched it.
Congratulations.
And I'm really proud of it. Thank you.
It's beautiful.
And, Swastha was the name that came to mind because that's really the core of your health, to be established in your self only,
Yes,
it's
that's
like
beautiful.
And you can understand it with gadgets also. If you have an iPhone, it will work best if you use it like an iPhone. If you try to use it like a Samsung, it's not going to work.
Great point. And I think I'm glad this point came up, and we'll put a link to your new product line in the show notes too, because that's very exciting. But I think what you said is we almost have to decondition ourselves daily because we do get bombarded on the TV, and women do. Like there's a certain image that we're told to keep, and so on. And I think that we need to remind ourselves and have that strength of character within, not to be affected by that. And that does take a lot of strength. So that's why we need to go on this journey to self and have all these practices and Dinacharya that we talk about, daily self-care, which I'm sure you're about to get into, to make sure that we feel balanced and that we're not thrown off by this pressure of society.
Right. And I think sometimes it is difficult to do alone.
Yes.
So if we can form our own tribes, small groups of empowering each other. I think one of the things I can say here, I think it's a good place to talk about this quickly, is sometimes women are bringing other women down more than the men bringing the women down, So I think that's a very important thing. So if we can all pledge to be positive, not only to ourselves, but also to our fellow women, to stand with them when they need it. I think that is going to really empower us as a tribe, because we understand ourselves better than anybody else.
Exactly.
I think that's a very important point, and I think women do fantastic when they have a buddy, someone that understands them, that can give them that self-assurance and self-confidence when most needed. So I think we should not only do it for ourselves, we should also try and be that support for other fellow women, because we are sensitive, emotional human beings, and we need a little bit extra dose of that love. We all know that.
Absolutely.
Right?
And who understands that better than other women?
Than other women.
Right,
so I think that's a very important point, because sometimes it's tough to do all this alone.
Oh, absolutely.
It is important to continue to go against the grain of the 21st century, which takes you, it's all marketing gimmicks, give a certain body image and then have fitness programs running towards it, and then have clothing lines going through it, and, the makeup lines, and it's all marketing, and we can do better than fall prey to those marketing messages. And be absolutely in bliss with who we are, because we are all beautiful, trust me.
Yes.
We are all creatures of beauty,
Yes.
So
absolutely. And when you have that inner bliss or that inner truth, true self coming out, that energy is radiant, and it's more radiant than any youthful skin or any products can provide. When you have that glow from within, I think that just radiates out.
Yeah, there is no better makeup than inner joy.
Right? I agree.
That is your best makeup.
Absolutely.
Your smile is your best makeup. So try that makeup on, what I would say.
There you go. Beautiful. So let's get back now to, that was great. I think that was a necessary sidetrack there. And you are going to go on to solutions, which is fantastic.
Let me get back to a couple more messages that I just want to quickly walk through.
Please, yes.
So there's another message that I want to say is install your own safety valve. So, I like to give you the visual of a pressure cooker, which always have like a safety valve, which goes off in case the pressure is too much in the cooker. So I think identifying something that can help you decompress when you know you're getting into that spin of, emotional reactivity, whether it's counting backwards or, just going out and breathing 10 times or just putting on a music or something, predetermine it, because when you are in the zone, you will not know what to do. So install your own safety valve. And these 5-6 points I'm happy to share with you, Colette, in just like bullets, if you like.
Please, that would be great.
Right. And then the other thing that I want to say is eco-friendly is always better, means try not to have too many chemicals to support you through this phase. All the natural things will be helpful. Ayurvedically, I'm going to give you a few herb names. We are getting there, or we're almost there. And last but not the least, I want to say is 2 more points. One is travel light in life. And this means not only just materials and assets, but also emotionally light, So continue to process any hurts, any resentments, any trauma. Continue to process on a periodic basis, and that keeps you traveling light in life. I would not say forgive and forget. I would say process, forgive, and then forget. Until you process it, it never goes away. So processing is a very important thing. So travel light in life. And then I would like to have a prescription for relax, because until you rest, you cannot restore. That is very important. I think too many women are like empty jugs. They have nothing to give. Remember, you can never give until you yourself are fulfilled. So I, in fact, tell my women friends, be selfish. Have you been selfish? So it's not the selfish, but really also bringing up the self, because really you're a much better person when you are at least minimally fulfilled.
Absolutely. Self-care, right?
Self-care, exactly. I mean, women would be the first ones to put their own care at the very bottom.
Absolutely.
Mostly, that's what happens, that they forget who they are, what they like, what used to give them joy. So one of the things that I do for my women colleagues and friends and clients is give them a prescription of doing 5 things that used to bring them joy every week. At least 5 things. I make like a checklist, write down what are the 10 things that used to give you joy when you were younger. Whether it was knitting or whether it was crochet or whether it was baking, whatever it is, making music, go back to it and do those 5 things. And it revives them, it restores them, rejuvenates them.
I'm a big believer in that. That's huge.
That's half the treatment right there, because joy cures like nothing else.
Absolutely. And if you go into the menopausal transition and you're spent or your body is depleted, it's going to be a rough transition, right?
Right, exactly. Because again, you're empty. And I just want to quickly walk you through a few bullet points that are listed by the North American Menopause Society as their approach to managing menopause. So they say you should cool the body core temperature, And Ayurveda talks about pitta balancing, right? They talk about exercise. Now, exercise would be good for the kapha menopause lady, right?
Yes.
Paced respirations, this is good for all. Relaxing activities, yoga, massage, meditation, leisurely bath, etc. Avoid triggers, spicy food, hot drinks, caffeine, alcohol. Wow, this is all Ayurvedic, right?
Yes.
Anecdotal reports that alcohol, caffeine, and spicy food seem to trigger hot flashes. So there are no surprises here. I wanted to share these bullets because these are so much in line with what Ayurveda says. Okay?
Right.
Now I'm going to come with the 5 A's that I like to share with my listeners.
Great.
Is starting with, so I call this 5 bullets the art of being. Okay? We have the art of living, the art of this and the art of that. But I like to promote the art of being.
Rather than doing, I agree.
There you go.
Yes.
We are a community, in the 21st century, all we do is do. It's always schedules and things to do. Everything is so outwardly, you know.
Yeah,
we need to engage in something. There seems to be some kind of peer pressure to do that.
Yes.
But we need to disengage from that. And, I did a TEDx talk recently for high schoolers. And
great.
I asked them, because one of my nonprofits is, our tagline says, building healthy communities. And under that, I'm trying to create a youth brigade of empowered youth health ambassadors.
Oh, fantastic.
So when I asked those high schoolers, have you done nothing today? They were all, they all woke up and they were like, okay, what is she talking about? And by the end of it, I was like, so will you all go ahead and schedule nothing in your calendar every week? And they were like, 100% we are going to do that. So art of nothing, art of being selfish, or art of being, all of these are extremely important to reset, to bring you back to Sama, what we call Sama in Ayurveda, which is the balance, harmony, coming back to harmony,
Absolutely.
That's there in the definition of health, Sama dosha, Sama agnisha, Sama dhatu malakriya, Sama agnisha. So everything is Sama, you need to come back to zero.
Yes.
So in the art of being, what I like to promote or share with our listeners is awareness, acknowledgement,
yes.
acceptance. These are the first 3, right? Awareness comes from education and reading up and, attending some kind of seminars and workshops about menopause. Hopefully you can find one in your area. Then there is acknowledgement. Okay, this is coming up. Okay. We know something is coming up. That way we can prepare for it. So acknowledgement is very important. If you think you're going to be young and beautiful and, youthful throughout your life, it's really not acknowledging the truth, right?
Yes.
So after acknowledgement, you should work on acceptance. And after acceptance, it should move towards alignment and amazement.
Oh, I love that.
Right?
Yeah.
You have to align with what is coming up. If you resist it, there's going to be friction.
Yes.
And there's going to be dissonance, and dissonance is disease. So you must work on aligning with it, and then you have to allow yourself to be amazed how much wisdom, how much enriched you are at this age. You have to think about the half glass full rather than half glass empty, you are more comfortable in your skin.
Yeah.
You are comfortable with who you are by the time you're approaching menopause, right?
Yes.
So these are the 5 very powerful things that I like our, listeners to practice.
I love this, and so hopeful and so optimistic. And I agree. I'm always talking about how the wisdom stage of life is something to enjoy and to look forward to, because you don't care what people think anymore. You're more in touch with your true nature. And this is the time for you. And there's less of this outward projection of wanting to, keep up with the Joneses or caring what people think. And there's more of a philosophical time and doing things for your own enjoyment. So I think it's really a time in life, maybe your children have left home and there's more time for you. And to do those things you used to enjoy but had to put to the side when you're too busy building a family or a career or so on.
Right. Right. And then the next very important thing is please do not be apologetic about being yourself.
Yeah.
I think a lot of women experience guilt. Oh my God, I shouldn't be watching a movie. I should be cleaning the house.
Right.
I shouldn't be doing my meditation. I should be cooking. All that is fine. But, the dishes can wait.
Yeah.
The floor can wait. You are the living temple. Make sure you pay your homage to your temple first.
That's wonderful.
So that really needs to come to the top. So start pushing it slowly to the top. So be unapologetic about being yourself and about self-care. That is extremely important. And then another pointer that I would like to give is really, where do you want to go with your menopause? That's another important thing. Are you ready to pause, or has life just begun? Think about it. Are you ready to pause, or has life just begun? Because both are true. There could be a woman who has done a lot, 2 shifts, 3 shifts, blah, 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 and she wants to now really pause, truly. The menopause really is taking you to a pause in your life. And for another person, it may have been just continued being a homemaker and just, not having had the opportunity to explore one's own potentials and likes and dislikes and passions and ambitions. So that is also fine. Has life just begun? Right?
Absolutely. We had a family early, yeah.
Exactly. So depending on where you want to go with your menopause, see, you want to be in the driver's seat. That's very important. So it's important to really sit down and think and introspect and reflect, where do I want to go in my menopause? And look at me, like I'm now even more of an entrepreneur in my menopause than I was when kids were there, because I put them right at the top at that time. Right. I was working, but I'm not going to do anything no matter what my potential is, because that's how I feel right now. I want to prioritize my children. And now I want to have a little bit of rajas in my life for another 10 years, and then I will go towards total sattva practices,
Wonderful.
So that's how I am choosing. So it really is important, where do you want to go? Where do you want to go personally in your menopause? Do you want to pause, or do you want to experience your phase 3, phase 2, whatever it is, right? So depending on that, you will choose your practices, your herbs, etc., and your, we call this the Vanprasthashram. There are these 4 stages of life as per Hindu philosophy. Vanprasthashram is where you start winding up at 50 plus, and you start transferring responsibilities, etc., to your next. It could be your children or whoever it is that you want to give the keys of your safe, etc., right? Your business, etc. So you start winding up in a way. So if you do not want to go that route, then you continue in your karma yoga. You continue to do what your passion and ambition is. You want to fulfill it, so be it. So some of the herbs that if it's okay, I can come to the herbs part of it.
That'd be fantastic. Yes, please.
Wonderful. So Shatavari is Asparagus racemosus, is one of the most common that I would like to mention here. It's a female reproductive tonic. It's a uterine health promoter. It is a herb that has very healthy levels of phytoestrogen. So you can completely rely on this for blunting that strong impact from the fall of estrogen at menopause. So you kind of, you don't want to get that big hit. You want to smoothen it. So Shatavari helps with that too. And Shatavari has like 100 health benefits. I'm happy to share the link to a study that can help your listeners get educated with all of that. And then we have Vidari, Ashwagandha, licorice, coriander, fennel, cumin, turmeric, brahmi, And last but not the least, ghee. Ghee is like I have 2 to 4 teaspoons of ghee a day. Love my ghee.
Yes.
So it really keeps me nourished, lubricated, and keeps that vata, mata a little away. From really overtaking my body. And choose the best form to administer these herbs. Means if it's kapha person, I would say go with teas and powders. If it's vata person and pitta person, I would say go the ghee route. Shatavari ghee, ashwagandha, incorporate into ghee or some kind of jam, like a brush. And get regular body work, abhyanga, pranayama. Pranayama also not, again, if you want to go and fulfill your ambitions, you would do more stimulating pranayama. If you want to go the Vanprastha route or, just winding up route, then you want to do soothing and pacifying pranayama. Yoga also should be selected, the types of yoga poses, depending on where you want to go with it. Then from food aspect, sesame, amaranth, turmeric into food or sweets. Sesame laddus, for example, are very recommended to help with slowing down the calcium loss.
Yeah, sesame is very high in calcium, isn't it?
Right. Not only that, it sort of acts like a catalyst in the presence of sesame, I think, slows down the calcium or the bone resorption.
Great.
Yeah. So just to summarize, I think I would say menopause is a natural transition in a woman's life. One should anticipate changes and shifts, prepare for them, but let the transition flow. So align with it. Yes. Make fundamental changes even as you provide symptomatic relief. Fundamental changes in terms of your diet and lifestyle choices, your thinking, your perspective. A healthy you ensures a smooth transition anytime. So focus on wholesome well-being, overall well-being.
Yes.
Integrate conducive foods and therapeutic herbs for hormonal balance and preventative health. We cannot be perfect, so don't beat yourself about, I cheated here and there. So we cannot be perfect, but if we can be more good than bad, then life is good.
Exactly.
Right? And then rest enough, as rest is inherent to restoration. Liberate yourself mentally. Move towards emancipation. Loosen the shackles, break the shackles, liberate yourself, find reasons to laugh, look at a cute animal video or a baby video, whatever it is that makes you smile, do it. Make a list of things that used to make you happy and do them.
Yes.
Prioritize yourself, listen to yourself, be yourself, finally fall in love with yourself fully, completely, unconditionally. And lastly, you are special.
Beautiful. That's so wonderful. Such great information and great reminders and great hope. And also I agree with you that this self-care is so important, and prioritizing your self-care, and it's not selfish. And getting a group of women together, a community that you can meet in, locally or online, that you can be vulnerable and discuss openly and support each other. I think that's so important.
Right.
Yeah, that's so great. Now as we know, and I always mention the podcast, like Ayurveda is very individual to each person. So it's always great to get advice on what herbs and what lifestyle choices, because for each individual, everyone has their own individual ratio of the doshas within their constitution. So it's always good to get tailored advice to you. So on that note, Dr. Shah, where can people find you and your offerings?
Thank you, Colette. Yes, at this point in my life, I'm actually consulting worldwide, and I'm using technology like anybody else. So people who are in my geographical vicinity do come over to my home office or my other place of consultation. And I'm able to see them in person, but I have a lot of out-of-state clients and out-of-country clients as well. So People can connect with me. Best way to reach me is my email, pratibha@myayurved.org, which I think you will have probably in your links.
Yes, I'll put that links in the show notes for everybody. Yes.
Right. And that's the best way to reach me and schedule a consultation, whether it's a wellness consultation or something that you need to address therapeutically. I typically do a very in-depth intake. I have my own forms that I have developed to capture critical information, and I generally want to know everything about you, starting from your birth to where you are today in our first meeting, and that's very exhaustive, and that helps me put together the entire picture. How did you get where you are today? What led to the imbalances?
Yes.
And once I construct that pathway to your particular imbalance, I am able to deconstruct that very effectively and very targeted way, and successfully so. So, yeah, that's my way of doing the consultation. And then I send out written plans, which are documented in an email, which I call master wellness plans, which have a diet part, a lifestyle part, herbs part. Great. And I also send the diet chart along with the email. So this is like a master wellness plans. It helps with current health issues, but it also gives a roadmap to the client to live in a way where illnesses will hopefully not occur while giving a high quality of life.
Wonderful. That sounds fantastic. And that's what we want for people, to empower people to take charge of their own health, keep themselves in balance. And that's what Ayurveda is all about, is preventing any dis-ease in the body or the mind. So I love it. And it's wonderful to hear, and that's what we do in Ayurveda, is really in-depth intakes of a client. So rather than the 7 minutes you might get at an doctor's office, you're getting really long, in-depth consultations, which is so necessary. So as you said, you can see how these imbalances manifested themselves in the first place, so you can deconstruct it.
Right. And just the fact that somebody is listening, finally, is very therapeutic.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Somebody's focused on you and wanting the best for you. Absolutely.
And looking at you as a whole, because sometimes you may have like a liver imbalance. Your liver function test may be not normal. And then you go to a hepatologist, and the hepatologist is looking only at your liver. He doesn't care what happens to your kidneys,
right,
by virtue of giving you some medicines or chemicals for liver. Lab tests coming normal. It's about the lab tests coming normal. It's really not what long-term is going to be beneficial for you as a whole, because, your heart, your kidneys, this is all you.
Yes, exactly.
And when one thing affects the other negatively, it does matter, and it should be taken into account.
I totally agree. It's not only physically, emotionally, spiritually, and that's the wonderful thing about Ayurveda, is the holistic approach, and we can't do that reductionist zooming in. We need to zoom out and look at the whole picture. Yeah, beautiful. Dr. Shah, I really appreciate your time today, and thank you so much. I think there's information you gave in this episode is going to help so many women out there, and men as well, men listeners, to help them understand this transition as well. So thank you very, very much.
You're very welcome, and we'll be in touch about some of the key points that I've shared. I'll be happy to share with them with you, so that they are available.
Wonderful. That'll be fantastic. I'll put all the links in the show notes, so you can just click on the show notes or go to my website and find out all the information from Dr. Shah. Dr. Shah, thank you again, and take good care of yourself, and thank you for all the wonderful work you're doing in the world.
Thank you, Colette. Thank you.
All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Such great and valuable information there from Dr. Shah, and please check out all the links that she provided in the show notes. Now, we talked about self-care practices a lot in this episode, or Dinacharya as they're called in Ayurveda. And in my podcast episode number 16, I go into detail about these daily self-care practices that help to keep your body and mind in balance, preventing dis-ease. So please check that out. Also, I wanted to give you a reminder that it's really important to get advice that's tailored to you when it comes to your health and well-being. in Ayurveda, there's no one size fits all. Everybody has a unique mind-body type and unique makeup of the doshas. And so it's really important to get that information that's specific to you when it comes to lifestyle routines and exercise or yoga or mindfulness that fits in with your lifestyle. And also, of course, with herbs and so on and foods. So please seek out a professional when you want to get that advice. I think it's really a good investment. You have Dr. Shah's information there. I provide online consultations and cleanses and daily habits courses. And I also provide a 20-minute free discovery call. And I'm going to provide that until about mid-July 2019. So if you haven't taken advantage of that one-time free call, please go ahead and do so, where I give tips and guidelines. But I just wanted to make sure that you do get some advice that's tailored to you, because oftentimes if we hop on fads or trends, they can take us down the wrong road and they may lead to further aggravation. So not everything is good for everybody, right? What was one person's medicine could be another person's poison. So please get that tailored advice to you. Final thing I want to talk about today is my upcoming Ayurveda and yoga retreat right here on the French Riviera in Villefranche-sur-Mer, which is nestled between Nice and Monaco. It's just a short drive from the Nice International Airport, so easy to access from anywhere. And that retreat is happening October 11th to the 13th, and you can get all the details on the retreat at my website. It's elementshealingandwellbeing.com/retreat. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget, we have the Elements of Ayurveda podcast Facebook group where we can support each other. I'll put all the links I mentioned just now in the show notes. So hop over there and you can find the podcast group and the retreat and Dr. Shah's links and so on. Take good care of yourself, be well, and ciao for now.